Welcome into the quest for the perfect bracket. We've got Andy Katz with us, who, as we like to say, has been covering March Madness since the Fab Five. Andy, we want to go through your bracket. You've obviously done a ton of these, but can you just kind of take us through some of your picks in the early rounds? Anybody you got going far?
Well, first off, one thing I do, which is I stay true to the process,
Okay.
which is because NCAA Bleacher want me to have a bracket immediately as soon as the bracket comes out. I'm forced to do this on the fly, not a lot of deep thought, but I stay true to it.
You do. You don't
And,
change
Admirable.
it.
I say, hey, look,
Yeah.
this is what because once it's out there, it's out there.
Yeah.
Now, what I am asked to do many times during the 3 weeks is as we go to each of those weeks, we're allowed to, reseed or
Yep.
pick again. But I don't change the original bracket. So whatever bracket contest, it's one in there. That's it. But I reserve the right, obviously, if it's a Sweet 16 that's missing, half of the field I picked, I reserve the right to now have new picks in the Sweet 16.
We'll
So,
let you have that.
yeah.
That's
So
how
I
it
think
goes.
that's
Yeah.
fair, but I don't change the bracket or put in multiple brackets into the bracket contest.
Got
The
it.
one I do is the one I had to do literally in like 2 minutes.
Okay. So you're not going like deep into the numbers. You're kind of just going with your gut from covering these teams all season. Who do
Yes,
you have?
yes. I mean, I'm thinking about potential matchups, location, obviously familiarity of covering these teams throughout the course of the country helps me in quick thinking, and obviously I'm paid attention all champ week, so I feel comfortable in that way. I also, you fall on this crutch of I think '08 you would know Wayne because your last name is Stats and you're big on the stats and I think '08's the last time we had all four number ones. Is
The
that
only
correct?
time. Yeah, only time.
So
Yeah.
last and only.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's rare,
But it can happen.
and so I don't go four number ones because of that. And this year I actually did 3 of 4. But really, the last couple of years we've had a scenario where there's an outlier. Last year was NC State. Year before, you could actually say there were 2 with FAU
Yeah.
and Miami, or 3 and San Diego State. So it happens. And the other thing too is I love when people say the week before, oh, what's your Final Four? Well, I'm going to tell you, a week ago, I might have said Michigan State. I might have had Alabama.
Hmm.
But then I see who they're with, and that changes my mind.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's why it's always hard to project, your Final Four, your Elite Eight, without actually seeing the bracket.
Right. All right. Well, who do you got? What are some of your early round picks? Any upsets early? And then anybody you got going far?
Well, let's just go. It's easier, I think, to segment it. So let's just
Yeah,
first
let's do
deal in the upper left part of your bracket in the South. To me, it's very intriguing because Ole Miss, Carolina now, as we're talking,
Yeah.
Carolina's beaten San Diego State. I like the way Ole Miss has been playing down the stretch. Chris Beard, plenty of tournament experience, took a team to the Final Four. Sean Padula is a big shot maker. I think everyone's like riding Carolina right now because they had this big win over San Diego State, but they've not been consistent at all. They've had some good wins, and then they ride that wave. I like Ole Miss here, and I actually like Ole Miss, getting past a depleted Iowa State, which I wouldn't have said that again 3 weeks ago. But without Keyshawn Gilbert, they're not the same team. To me, the ones that jump out are everyone loves UC San Diego against Michigan because they turn the ball over. Michigan turns the ball over. Again, a week ago I might have agreed. I saw in person Michigan for 3 straight days, and they're back to playing the best basketball of the season. So that reset from the loss they had to Michigan State to when they played on Friday worked. And I just don't think I think the Golden Wolf combo is going to be too much for UC San Diego. So I like Michigan. They certainly could beat Auburn, but I'm going to have faith that we're going to get the Auburn that was the best team in the country with the best player in Janai Broom. We'll see if they're the same Auburn in the last couple weeks. Yeah, they could get beat by Michigan. They could get beat by Louisville. If Louisville beats Creighton, it is a quirky thing. And the last time, Wayne, I can think of something like this was when George Mason, dating myself here, but when George Mason played UConn
Yeah.
in DC as an 11. And I always remember, I was there, and I remember Jim Calhoun complaining that this wasn't fair. Well, they were the 1 seed. And so the 1 seed should theoretically beat the 11. I don't care where the game is. But it was in DC. No one projects that the 11 is going to get to the Elite Eight, but they did. In this case, it's only the second game, and Louisville is playing in Lexington, Kentucky as an 8. So if that happens, it's going to be quite a home court for the Cardinals against Auburn. As close as Auburn is, it's still going to be a home game for Louisville. So that could happen. Certainly Michigan could beat them. Michigan State could beat them. And a lot of people, I think, have Michigan State beating them or Michigan. But I'm going to put faith in Auburn. And the other game that I think is going to be one of the best games in that bracket is New Mexico Marquette with Donovan Dent and Cam Jones. I think it's a fabulous matchup. I think it's, I don't know what the line is or whatever. To me, that's a pick'em game no matter what. Mm-hmm. You could go either way. So that's how I see that upper left bracket. You tell me if you want me to keep going or pause right there for any.
No, let's go to the bottom left where I'm very intrigued to hear, you got Maryland going all the way and you got Texas Tech over St. John's. Take us through it.
Yeah, so everyone's in love with Florida. I get it. Mm-hmm. They had a great end of the season. They won the SEC tournament. But this is a game of matchups. And while UConn certainly could beat them, I don't think they will. I love this Maryland team, the Crab Five. Remember, in the NCAA tournament, the timeouts are longer. So to say they don't have any depth really only applies to foul trouble. Okay? It doesn't apply to, conditioning because they are long timeouts. And so there's plenty of time to rest within. So I'm not worried about that. But Queen and Reese, they're just better than Florida's front court. And I think it's a bit of a wash in the backcourt. So I like Maryland in San Francisco, where nobody's going to have the home court. The bottom part of the bracket, by the way, let me say one thing about right above that. A lot of people like Colorado State over Memphis because we don't know the health of Tyrese Hunter. I get that, but I saw Memphis in person early in the season. I think they're a fabulous team, a lot of talent. And by the way, Memphis could beat any of these teams if they're playing well. Mm-hmm. So that wouldn't shock me if Memphis got all the way to the Final Four, to be honest. I mean, I think they need Hunter for that to happen. We'll see. Bottom part, what a great bracket in terms of just storylines. Bill Self and John Calipari in a first-round game, Kansas, Arkansas. They're seeded to their records, not their talent. And, they met in 08 when Cal was at Memphis, won by Self, title game. Then they meet in 12 when Cal is at Kentucky with Anthony Davis, beats Kansas. Here they are in the first round. Crazy. Then in the second round, you could get either Rick Pitino and Bill Self and St. John's or Pitino Cal. Plenty of great battles with Louisville and Kentucky, and yet you'd have St. John's, Arkansas. Who would have thought that? They were respective schools. But I love Texas Tech. Second in the Big 12. JT Toppin, transferred to New Mexico. He's one of the best players in the country this year. And I love there's always a bracket that's a little, even though these are good teams, but this is my Maryland Texas Tech Elite Eight, which is maybe not something people would have predicted. I know it's not something people would have predicted, a couple of months ago. Yeah. So when I got Maryland coming out of that. So I have an Auburn, Maryland. So the West is my bracket that's going to send a team that is not a 1 to the Final Four.
Okay. How many people have that happening, Stats? Maryland going to the Final Four?
Yes, so right now for the Final Four, Maryland is in the Final Four on 9.5%, but that is the highest of the four. So the people who are trying to find, I think, Andy, you probably can see this too. A lot of people are, the 1s and 2s seem to almost like you have to pick them in a lot of ways because their metrics are so high. But I think people know that, like we talked before, all 4 1s is only happened once before. We're the cool picks that, the people who really know the game can find teams that maybe can perform really well, better than the 1s and 2s. And Maryland seems to be the favorite of the 4s by a pretty big margin, actually. In terms of Arizona's in the Final Four on just about 4.5%. So Maryland's twice as popular as the other 4s getting the Final Four. Yeah, Andy, maybe you're the ones making it happen. People are following your lead there.
But it is a bracket. And look, maybe I'll be wrong, obviously, and Florida wins it, and that's fine. but there is no natural team in San Francisco.
Mhm.
I mean, if you told me in
Yeah.
2 weeks it's Maryland, it's Texas Tech, it's St. John's, it's Memphis, I wouldn't be surprised by any of
Be
it.
surprised by any of them.
Yeah.
Or if Kansas suddenly gets their act together. I mean, Kansas was preseason 1. I mean, they're more than capable of winning 4 games,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
Wayne?
Yeah, anything's possible. Yeah.
Of course, anything's possible. It's March Madness. All right, let's
Yeah,
go to
exactly,
the top
yeah.
right portion of the bracket. Andy, what do you got here?
So, Duke, we don't know 100%. Cooper Flagg's healthy. They say he's going to play.
Yeah.
But is he 80%? Is he 90%, 100, 75, 65? We don't know. But what we do know is they won the ACC tournament without him.
Yeah.
And that's significant. Because if they had lost early, I might have been a little reluctant here to go with them. But they won without him. I know the ACC isn't as strong, but they still won games without him.
Yeah.
So, I do have them going, but there are some obstacles along the way. Oregon. I've seen Oregon a number of times. I think Oregon does match up really well with them. Nate Biddle and Kwame Evans have the size inside to compete with Duke. The key, TJ Bomber, really good defender. It all comes down to Jackson Shellstad. If he can make shots, then Oregon is more than capable of knocking off Duke and getting in the Final Four.
Yeah.
Below that, Alabama, Grant Nelson. We don't know how healthy. I had Alabama as my preseason 1. If they were 100% healthy, first of all, they would be a 1, not a 2, because they would have won a couple more games. And I like this Alabama team, so won't be shocked if they get there. The sleeper here, maybe not a sleeper, but the team that I'm really looking out here is BYU for a couple reasons. A, they score really well. Richie Saunders has had a great end of the season. Remember, they absolutely blew the doors off of Kansas at home in the last month. They're playing in Denver, okay, at altitude, which they're used to, and BYU has a massive fan base in the mountain region. It's going to feel like a home game in Denver when BYU steps. That's why I like them over Wisconsin if that matchup occurs in the second round. It's a quick turnaround from Wisconsin playing Sunday to Thursday at altitude, and if then they have to play BYU on a de facto home court, that's going to be rough. It's not the Marriott Center, but it's going to feel like that at times. And so, it would be in Newark if they played Alabama in a Sweet 16 game. But I love the way they're scoring the basketball right now, so that's why I'm taking a little bit of a flyer here. I don't think I'm alone here, Wayne, but I had a Duke-BYU matchup with Duke advancing.
Okay, well, stats?
A lot of people have you?
So I did the numbers. So it's kind of how numbers can depending on how you look at it, different perspectives. So VCU is the third most popular upset pick in the first round. However, BYU is in the Elite Eight on about 10% of brackets. So for a 6 seed, that's pretty good. So I think people see that the people who are picking BYU to get out of the first round are sticking with them relative to their seeding, of course. We're not saying everyone's picking BYU to make it after the first round. But they're Elite Eight in 10% of brackets, which is good for a 6 seed. And Andy, you're right. That's a good point about, the altitude. That could be a big thing that I didn't even think about that could come to play. And just playing close to home, too, which also helps out a lot.
All right, so lower right, again, this would be great if this all plays out. So Houston, to me, I think, first of all, Jamal Shead, if he doesn't get hurt last year, I think they make the Final Four. They were that good a year ago. They're really good again, and they're defending. And they won the Big 12 going away, I think by 3 games. And then they won the tournament. They're just rolling right now. And they've had other chances when the Final Four has been in Texas. This is, to me, the chance that they're actually going to break through and get there in the state of Texas.
Okay.
Could Clemson beat them? Could Purdue finally play up to their potential? Could Gonzaga? Sure, they could. I don't see it, though. The really intriguing part is the bottom part. Tennessee, great defensive team, not a great scoring team. If they play UCLA, that's going to be a rock fight, and it'd be in Lexington, which, by the way, for all Mick Cronin's kind of complaining about travel, he coached at Cincinnati. I think he's going to actually love being in Lexington, which is real, right? It's basically Cincinnati South. He's going to have family, friends, people there. So I actually kind of like UCLA getting out of there. And now Lamont Butler back, I like Kentucky getting to a Sweet 16. And maybe I'm wishing this to happen, but I would love to see in Indianapolis, at Lucas Oil, the ultimate blue blood matchup of Kentucky-UCLA. Big
great.
Blue Nation would come all out in Indianapolis.
That'd be crazy.
And that would just be a great matchup in Indy, Kentucky, UCLA on a big stage. But I think Kentucky gets there. So I have a Houston-Kentucky matchup in the Elite Eight with Houston getting there. So that's Duke, Houston, Auburn, Maryland.
Okay, so there's your Final Four, and then
You want me
take
to take it home?
Take it home. What's your
Well, before I do
championship?
that, Wayne, anything?
Yeah.
Wayne, before I do that, anything on my lower right Midwest?
Yeah, so I was curious about the UCLA pick because that one I was like, you don't hear people talking about UCLA as like a team that could kind of make a run there. So I looked to see where they were. So they're in the Sweet 16 on about 12% of brackets on the 7 line, which is not bad. But if you look at the number sevens, it's the third of the highest sevens, just ahead of Marquette. But for a team that's kind of slept on, I think, I mean, they've done it before. A double-digit seed making it kind of far. So it's definitely possible. I know there were 7, but, they're kind of a team that could kind of surprise people there. And also, Andy, with Kentucky, I think people were so excited the last few years of Kentucky of getting picked high relative to their seed that now people are kind of scared off a little bit. I think even though they're still a 3 seed. Yeah. So if anything, it might be underpicked, if anything. People are so scared of Kentucky, of how the recent history has gone, that maybe now they're kind of like an underdog pick. I know, Kentucky underdog, but in terms of relative to where people should be picking them as a 3 seed.
By the way, I picked 3 of 4 10s beating 7s. I mean, they're not crazy because a lot of them are just, high major. But I did pick 3 10s over 7s. The other thing I would just say, a remarkable streak could be snapped here because Gonzaga has been to 9 straight Sweet 16s, trying to make it 10. Had they been a 7, I think they would have done it because they're playing well right now. It's just, 8-9 against Houston. I just don't, could it happen? Sure could. I'm not feeling it. And look, if they do it, what an unbelievable streak to go 10 straight years.
That'd be crazy.
To get to the Sweet 16. So,
Okay.
Houston, Auburn, Maryland. I've got a rematch of a game that was played in December at Cameron, won by Duke. Auburn at Duke. And so I've got an Auburn-Duke final. And again, I am basing this on the Auburn that was the best team in the country that I saw in person early in the year. And I know it's a long season. But I'm just going to say, if they get back to what I saw, they're the best team. And Duke is, to me, the second best team. And last year, we were spoiled. We had 1 versus 2, essentially. 2 best teams all year were Connecticut and Purdue. And by the way, we had the Player of the Year in Zach Edey and an All-American in Donovan Clingan. This year, the 2 Player of the Year candidates, Janai Broome and Cooper Flagg. This would be what would
be great.
2 best players, 2 best teams. So maybe this is me projecting here, but that would be great.
All right, so you're going with Auburn all the way and sticking to it from when you filled it out about 10 seconds after the selection.
Yeah.
But we love your picks. Thanks so much, Andy, for breaking it down, and we always appreciate your time.
Thank you.